Welcome to the 99 Podcast, a ministry of Crossroads Grace Community Church in Manteca, California. I'm Heather Mahoney, and I'm excited that you're joining us for Season 2 of the 99 Podcast. We hope it challenges you and creates a hunger to dive deeper into Scripture so you can know Jesus better.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 99 Podcast, where we are going to take some time to dig deeper into Sunday and Thursday's messages. Today we're sitting down with the Pastor Brian as we unpack Daniel chapter 10, and it was some pretty cool stuff this week. We had angels, demons, heavenly realm battles, and it all culminated with an amazing weekend of baptisms. Pastor Brian, how are you feeling right now?
Exhausted, but great week, and it's good to always hang out with you, Mr. Preston. And yeah, I mean, we Heather is currently missionarying in Mexico.
Yes.
So we are grateful that she's there and having a good time. But yeah, it was a great week. It just, when you have a chance to walk through a text that is a little bit different than what normally you do, it kind of opens up your eyes to different things. But it was heavy. I mean, we're talking angels, demons, and I mean, the culmination of baptisms. My arms are tired, but that's a good thing. So,
I mean, they are truly like one of the best services we do all year, like baptizing
100%.
And music and the baptisms. And I weep every time.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, we had all the baptisms, and it's so good. And I want to ask you about some baptism experiences that you've had over the years.
Yeah.
So first of all, for those of us who don't know, what is like the quick version of your baptism story?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I grew up in South Dakota. I've kind of talked at that ad nauseum. Went to the University of Nebraska, and when I was there, was kind of called out by one of the FCA leaders that basically said, "You're a nice guy, but you're not a Christian. If you want to know about Jesus, let's talk." And so talked to Darren Duran. He told me about Jesus, and then that Thanksgiving break. So it's coming up. Like I've got to do the math, but many years at this point. So what would be 25 years, I guess, at this point, 26 years. Went back to my little church in South Dakota, and we at the end, it was First Christian Church in Rapid City, South Dakota. And at the end of it, there was always an opportunity if anybody wanted to get baptized. You just came forward. And so I told my mom, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go, and walked to the front. And Larry Stevens was one of the elders there. He met me at the front, and he had this like bewildered look on his face. Pulls me in the back and he says, "I thought you were already one of us," is what he told me. So, because I guess I had been living this good life, but not really a godly life. And so I was baptized that day, and it was a great moment. It was in that little church in South Dakota. The baptistry is still there.
Oh, yeah.
It is unfunctional at this point, my friend told me, but it's still there. So it's good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, brief one. Yours. Let's hear yours real quick.
I was pretty young, so I don't actually remember like the moment that I decided it, right? I do remember that I was an age where when we were like, I got baptized, my stepdad and my mom baptized me, and as we were leaving the baptistry, I thought it was appropriate to swim under the water like a fish.
Dude.
And my stepdad grabbed me by my hair and he yanked me up and said, "That's not what we do." And so
how big was this baptistry?
Well, it's big.
Okay,
it was outside. It's pretty big tank.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, and I had like this moment in high school where I was like, oh no, I was baptized too young, and I kind of like spiraled. And I had one of the best conversations I ever had with my small group leader, Tim Hodges and Larry Hoover.
Shout out.
Yeah, they're listening. And they kind of walked me through how I understood in the moment and what it meant to me in the time, and really like calmed me down and like really solidified like the purpose of baptism and not the fact that you have to do it over and over again, and like the solid work that was done, and how you might not, more now than you did then, but that's good. We should always, when you're 80 and been following the Lord your whole life, you should know more than when you were baptized at 18 or whatever.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was mine. I just remember swimming underwater and getting yanked and being like, what did I do wrong? And like, obviously.
Why was that not viral? That's so good.
Come on. That's how it goes. Hey, they're all amazing. Every baptism is so good. But are there any that stand out? Like any baptisms that stand out to you?
Well, it's hard for me to dethrone baptizing my wife. Like that was like my favorite. And so when I was able to do that, that was in Chicago. It was the version of the church that we were at, because there's multiple stages of the building, it was when they had a gymatorium, if you've ever been to one of those, gymatorium, but then in the stage, under the stage was the baptistry. So if you wanted to get baptized, you had to deconstruct the stage in order to get to the tank that was underneath. And so after service, and my wife is very private, and so she wanted to do it after service, but it was a bit spontaneous. They didn't know. And so we're having like pull up the cords and move the pedal board and move the stage. But I got to baptize. But what was funny about Cherise is, so she got baptized as a baby. She was in a Methodist church. There was a method to everything. And so she realized, like, as we were kind of getting older, I just would kind of tap her on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, I think it would be good for you to get baptized as an adult, you know? And Cherise kept saying, she's like, it doesn't make me more of a Christian. I'm like, I know, but I'm just going to say, you know, Jesus got baptized. Maybe we do the same thing, you know? And so she finally, okay, I'll do it. And I literally remember it's one of the hardest baptisms because she fought me the whole way down. She was, I'm still a Christian. You know, it was this wonderful moment. So Cherise was my favorite. I was some great ones through the years. I remember this elderly lady that was just so sweet, and she could barely make it down the stairs, and we were able to baptize her. And that there was another girl that had a broken leg. We had to keep it up out of the water. One's here. There was a guy that had a ankle monitor on his ankle, so we had to keep that out of the water to be able to baptize him in a local pool. And just so many. The girl in the wheelchair, I'm blanking on her name, but she's this amazing young lady, but she's in a wheelchair, and we didn't have enough people to be able to think through how we were going to get her into the tub. And so mid-air, I was like, it's all me. And so I'm carrying this young lady who's got no feeling in her legs, so it's just kind of dead weight. And man, it was a moment. I remember praying, God, give me the strength of Samson. Give me the strength of Samson. And he hooked me up. So there's just so many. And then if you look at, you think through the years, the families that got baptized and all of those, it's hard to put into words. But I always say, and you probably would agree with this too, that when you're in that moment with those people, that's like holy, sacred ground.
Yeah.
And people are so excited when they come up out of the water too. I've gotten punched in the face from celebrations before, but yeah, some amazing ones. So
yeah, they're all in the moment. They are all the best baptism you've ever been a part of.
Yeah,
like
of course.
In the immediate of it, right? And
yeah.
It's so overwhelming. It's so good. And there are I mean, just for all the ankle monitor stories and all the all the details that come up with it, like it's just, they're all just so holy and so good to be a part of.
Weren't you telling me one about like a dog or something like that, or some crazy story about that? So
yeah, so I was at CCV and they were talking.
Now we say CCV a lot with CCV. Let the peeps know, brother. Yeah,
I was. It was the place where I did my residency, and I grew up at a church called Christ Church the Valley in Arizona.
Great church.
Yep,
great church.
Where we all grew up, and I did my residency there. So that means I was like super intern, so I got to see all the backroom stuff, which was so fun.
Yeah.
And they were talking about a woman who came up and she asked, hey, can I baptize my dog, or will you baptize my dog? And they said, no. And then they sat her down and explained all the reasons why. And she said, that's great. Please baptize my dog. And they're like, you didn't listen at all. No, we're not going to do that. They went back and forth. And finally, she left all in a huff. And they watched her on the security camera walk across the campus and go to that big tank that I was baptized in, dunk her dog, say a prayer, and then walked on off. And walked off with her little wet dog. So yeah, pretty great stuff. So I don't know if all dogs go to heaven, but that one's got the best shot out of anyone. Oh man, what a good time.
That is going to have to be another episode. We'll have to walk through that. So, but that's so funny.
Yeah.
So funny.
We love baptisms. It's a great weekend. And I wanted to just wrap it up the baptism talk. I want to ask you a question. So I have a ton of conversations with young adults, with students, and I'm positive you have them too.
Love it.
Of people who say, I follow Jesus. I've confessed with my mouth. I believe in my heart. I am a follower of the Lord, but I'm just not ready to get baptized. Like I hear that all the time. Like I'm not ready for that step, or I'm not there yet. Like what do you say when that conversation happens? Or for anyone who's listening who feels that way or knows someone who feels that way, what do you say? Yeah,
well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people are comfortable with their faith being in their head, meaning like I know that I know, but I don't need other people to know that I know. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like there's this like security blanket of this is my thing. And there's often this phrase about like I have a very private faith, or or versions of that.
Oh yeah.
And I think that there's something, and I believe that's really the power of baptism. I mean, when you step out and say, "Here I am, and here's what I believe," there's like no putting the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yep.
You know, and I think people are a little scared of that for multiple reasons. I think the first is just a very obvious cultural thing. Like if if I get baptized and people know, then they're going to look at me differently, or they're going to talk to me differently, or I'm going to lose friends or family, or all kinds of different things. And in some cases, I mean, culturally, if you think about if someone from the Islamic faith decided to become a believer in Jesus, I mean, them getting baptized publicly potentially has ramifications for them for their physical safety. So in some ways, I can understand in those regards. But then on the other side, I think it is really this, when I'm putting all of my chips in and I'm moving beyond this intellectual faith to like a faith of action and saying, I don't care who knows, like I'm going to go for this. The step that I think people are saying I don't want to do that is because I think they're like, I'm going to hold a little bit of my old life to me. I'm going to keep my sin bucket just with me a little, because I know once I make that step, man, it's all on. Now, I'll tell you an odd story from me that kind of kept me from like becoming a Christian, and then maybe you could even like say getting baptized. And it's dumb. And at the time I played Super Mario Brothers. Shout out to some Nintendo Super Mario Brothers. Okay,
come on.
So back in the day, Super Mario Brothers. If you don't, there's this little guy named Mario or Luigi, or whoever your character was, but Mario was the main guy that came on. And you would run across, and then you would jump over things, and you have to dodge things, and occasionally you get to jump on a mushroom. Remember this?
Yeah.
So you jump on the mushroom, and it would go right, and it would make you big. Okay, and then occasionally you would touch a star, and you'd get like super speed and all this different stuff. So in my I just am a creative weird dude. So in my brain, I'm thinking like, okay, if I'm going to live my life. So the mushroom is when I accept Jesus. Okay. I'm going to live my life as long as I can. Because if I jump on the mushroom too soon, because in the game, if you get hit by a turtle shell or whatever, you get, right, you shrink down. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait to the very last second, jump on the salvation mushroom, get big, and I'm going to go to heaven. Everything's good. But if I do it too early and I screw up, I'm going to be small again. God's going to be mad. And da-da-da-da. It sounds stupid, but that is exactly what's going on in my head. Wow, okay. And so in a different version, much more mature version, I'm sure, there are people that are thinking, I just got to wait till the very last second because I can sin it up and then I'll just jump on the mushroom, jump on salvation, and then I'm good to go. So baptism, I think, is this people saying, I'm jumping on the mushroom. Like I think this is my moment where I'm going to do it. And I think there's a hesitancy to that. Now, what I know that you know, and that everybody knows now, if you've really followed Jesus, is that once you jump on the mushroom, okay, we'll keep going. Like once you follow Christ, there is no going back to small Mario again, right? You are found, you are loved, you are highly favored by God. Your eternity is secure. And yes, you're going to screw up, but now you have grace and forgiveness and Jesus in front of you to be able to live your whole life with. So I say, what are you waiting for? Just go for it. Jump on the mushroom.
I have never heard baptism with Super Mario analogy. That is incredible.
And now it can't get out of your head. So
I follow a guy on TikTok who wrote a video game devotional, 365 days of Bible video game references. And every night he posts a video of the video game reference. And now I need to message him and say, boy, do we have one for you.
Let me talk to you.
Get it on there. That rules. It was really good. No notes. When we have services that end on baptisms, typically, we're doing, they are the home runs of the gospel, right? We're preaching on a fun parable, a quote from Jesus, the story of a person who got baptized. And you did the next most obvious thing, which is the introductory chapter of the apocalyptic vision given to Daniel in 536 BC, which is like, obviously that goes to baptism. How much fun did you have? Because I know it wasn't like, how much fun did you have going into baptism from this?
Well, I love a challenge.
Yeah.
And so typically what we do is we'll actually we'll know when baptisms are, and we'll land on a text that just like lines up more smoothly. But as we were looking at it, and you were in that meeting, we were talking about it, we're looking at, Daniel 9 is talking about repentance and walking through this door of like, okay, I need to turn my back on my old life. And so we wanted to give people that opportunity to have repentance. And we did. We opened up the opportunity for people to accept Christ and to get prayer, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But then the natural next step is to get baptized. And so I as we talked, we just said, we can't wait. But what I loved about it is that if you go into the text, all you need to do is you have to find the thread for Jesus.
Yep.
And once you find the thread for Jesus, you can walk yourself into any sort of discipleship moment. Now, for me, the fun part that I kind of walked into is you remember the end of that message, I was kind of talking about how the military in the world the most powerful militaries have the most powerful navies. Because if you have control over the waters, you have control over you have land, air, and sea at the same time. You've got these there's 50 aircraft carriers in the world, 20 of them are controlled by the United States, so we have the most dominant navy in the entire world. And that changed the course of many, many wars when a navy is involved with it, because there is power that's in the water to be able to have control of that. So as we talk about spiritual battles between good and evil, the interesting part that for me was this interesting thought of, wow, there's power in the water. And so that final line that I kind of wanted everybody to kind of think about, that the war was won in the water, like this idea, it was kind of fun for me to think, like, what would it look like to think of the water as powerful and then think of the water as part of this war? And so for me, that's where kind of Daniel 10 came alive, because if you're unpeeling the seal of the spiritual realm that's behind there, these angels, these demons, and then reminding ourselves that God is in control and that he's the one that wins the war, well, isn't there a beauty in thinking that you can be part of that winning the war?
Yeah. And
there'll be lots of battles. There'll be a lot of little skirmishes. Doesn't mean that after you get baptized, you come out, life is perfect and easy. Gosh, you and I are examples of that. Life isn't always easy, but the war has already been won. And so that the fact that the war is won in the water, I think is kind of a fun angle to think about.
Yeah, it's not often that you land with baptisms on like the power of God. Normally it's like the grace of God, and these are all valid, like the grace of God and the forgiveness and the acceptance. But like baptism is rooted in this is only effective because of God's incomprehensible power over sin and death and all the things that should shackle us.
Yeah, well, what it represents, like death to your old life, going under the water, coming up now, you have this new life, getting out of the baptistry, living in the newness that he's given you.
Yeah.
It's all power. It's all Holy Spirit power over and over and over. So the war is one of the water. It's kind of a fun way of thinking of it.
It's so good. I really enjoyed it. And you kicked us off really like teeing us up for the rest of the message, because you started with understanding that like our battle isn't an earthly battle. Yeah. It's a spiritual one. You quoted Galatians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. So our battle is a spiritual one. And the second thing you set up is that we aren't fully ready to know and face everything that's going on. Like if all of a sudden our eyes could see all of the spiritual warfare, we would be, 1 Corinthians 13:12, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. But now I know in part, then I shall now fully, even as I am fully known. Like we are not ready to see it all right off the rip. And so I have two questions for you. One's more fun, one's more real. The first one is, was there, when you were younger, a book or a movie that you watched or you read that you were not ready for?
Okay, so the one that comes to mind just immediately is The Return of the Jedi.
Oh.
Okay, so in The Return of the Jedi movie, there's this scene like early in the movie where the guy gets, Luke Skywalker gets dropped into the under Jabba the Hutt's little pit, and that big animal, and like eats and everything. And that just like, I couldn't handle it. I wasn't ready for that. I was probably like 16 or something. But but what was funny is, the funniest part about that is that, so I went and watched it with my mom for some reason, because my mom loves Star Wars, which is cool. But then my grandfather took me to the movie and he hadn't seen it yet. And so that scene starts to come up. And so I hide behind the seat and I'm like, Grandpa, it's okay if you come down with me because it's a scary part. Because I knew it was coming. But I was wrecked for weeks on that. What about you? I mean, you're a reader, love you some movies. So.
I do love movies, but this one, the one that immediately comes to mind was my dad decided I have to listen to something when I fall asleep. I can't have a silent room. I can't have white noise. I can't do it. It has to be like something to make my mind listen to that instead of itself, right?
Yeah.
And so I was listening to cassette tapes of Where the Red Fern Grows.
Excellent.
Did you ever read that book?
Yeah. Okay. I never did the cassette tape, though. Fantastic.
Yeah, so listen to this cassette tape every night. It was like a 30-part series. Whoa. And every night I listened to it all. My brother fell asleep within minutes. I listened to the whole thing. And
every night you'd listen to the whole thing?
No, like a piece of it. It was like a 30-parter, right?
Holy cow.
I mean, and the end of that book / cassette tape is horrific and heart-wrenching and, just rips your guts out. Right. And so I wasn't ready for that. And I remember listening to the end of it and just falling apart. I mean, just relentlessly sobbing in my room. I went out to go find my parents, and the second my dad saw me, like, dry heaving, crying. He started crying because he knew what he had done, and he had inflicted this horrific death dog book.
Right, yeah.
It's so bad. It's so the end of the book
there's
is
never a happy dog book.
no. It's always bad.
Always.
And this one is no exception. Don't read it if you want to be happy.
Okay.
That was the one for me. In a more serious note, in your life, has God ever kept you from fully knowing or seeing something that was too soon that later you look back and you go, oh, thanks God for keeping that from me or keeping me away from that? Like, has that ever happened with you?
Yeah. I remember there was a time before I came to Crossroads that there was a church in Arizona actually that was kind of like I was thinking about I was applying for. I was kind of down the road with the church and everything. It was a great church. We had a rough kind of history because they were the lead pastor had a falling out morally, and so they were looking for this for somebody to replace. And so I was in a season where I was like, God, okay, wherever and whenever I'll go, And so I was deep into that process, and I remember running one day, and I was listening to Andy Stanley in North Point, and his second guy that's number 2 under him was kind of preaching that day, which is great. I really liked him. But I remember him at the end of the message saying something along the lines of like, guys, I'm really sad this will be my last day that I'll be with you guys. I'm actually taking a job at this exact church that I was applying for. And so that was how I found out that I didn't get the job at this church by Andy Stanley's number 2, like announcing he was going to take this job. So I was like, this stinks, and everything. I didn't understand it or anything, and so part of it was I could see from afar how much how difficult that job was for him, and thinking like, man, God, you like saved me from something. But then on the flip side, then this was the very next job that opened up, and so to see God, what He's done through this, it's like, God, thank you for saving me from Arizona and bringing me to California. But that was just one of many moments that I could think of. But it was very surreal to be running, and I actually stopped running for a second. I said, well, I guess we're done with that. So,
man.
But anyway, yeah. Do you have a quick one? I mean, what about you?
Yeah. When I turned 18, I knew I wanted tattoos. It was always a shocker, right? And so the first tattoo I got was a big old outline of the state of Arizona, born and raised. Shout out home. And
just took a shot at it. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. But I knew when I knew I wanted to go to ministry since I was in high school, and I knew when I went off to college, I said, I'm not going to do ministry here. For whatever reason, like the more I prayed about it, I read about it, and I just knew in my gut. Yeah. And so I got that tattoo because I was like, you know what? This is home, but I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
Because if I stayed there, it'd be a real touristy tattoo. Like that'd be really awkward, right? And so I knew that. And then I proceeded for the next 5 years to desperately like crawl and scratch and scrape for any job in Arizona I possibly could. Like I completely ignored what I knew and like what I thought was so true. And over and over again, it didn't work. And over again, I had doors slammed in my face and none of it made sense. And I was so discouraged.
Yeah.
And then looking back, I was like, we ended up here, and there's this church in California that was every step of the way was so obvious. From the second phone call I had, Cass and I were like, oh, this is it. This is the church, by the way, in California. If that wasn't clear. And when we finally made the decision, I got slammed with the memory of like, oh, I knew this. But like I forgot about it, and like the Lord kept me from so many bad things that I desperately wanted that He had told me about years and years before. So like looking back, it's like, oh, obviously God had it the whole time.
Well, it kind of talks. Yeah, we'll talk in a second here, but oftentimes the hardest things that we have to do are usually what God has called us to do. You know? And that's, you moved from Arizona, I moved from Chicago. Like we both had families and young families when it happened. So we both understand that, but we also now can look back on it and say, man, I don't know if I would have it any other way, God,
Not at all. Yeah. And one of your main points, like one of my favorite lines was, God will keep us in hard situations for His glory and for our growth.
Yeah, that was hard to write. Let me just tell you.
It's so true. And it's not a fun truth all the time, right?
No, because like I said, life is going to be hard, and you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to hurt. And I could keep listing off things. You and I both could, it's, and that is seemingly something that we're allergic to in our society right now, that we just don't want it to be hard. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I think that, and it doesn't mean that it's not hard. It's just maybe grasping the reality that this is part of what it means to be alive, and also to live in a broken world. So,
Yeah, I mean, like Jesus was saying, it's like, hey, if if the world loved me, well, then they'd love my followers. But
good point.
guess what? The world didn't love me, so it's not going to be easy for you. You really teed us up. You're like, yeah, life's going to be all these things. And as a pastor, like you've walked through it yourself, but you also shepherd so many people that go through so much hurt and pain and hard work. So like, what do you say to the people that they know, they believe the truth that like this is for God's glory?
Yeah.
But what about the middle where you're just in the hard and you haven't reached the growth and the glory yet? What do you say to those people? How do you shepherd them?
Well, yeah, because it could sound pretty harsh, like to look at somebody battling cancer and saying, hey, listen, life's hard. Suck it up, buttercup. Like that's not what they need in the middle of that. What they need to remember is partly that God is in control, like even in the midst of it all. I try to bring us back to Psalm 23 that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, reminding ourselves that there is no way to have a shadow unless there's a little bit of light, and so that there's always something, and that Romans 8:28 is still going to be true, that God's going to use all things for the glory of those that love him. And so in the midst of it, our love and our devotion to him is what's so important. You look at the life of Job in the midst of everything, I'm going to praise his name, whether it's good or bad. And but you also have to be very careful that you just don't throw out Bible verses and pithy statements at people in the middle of a mess, because that's what they're looking for. In fact, sometimes that's just even salt in the wound. Honestly, sometimes what you need to do is just sit with them and say, and agree with them, this is hard and it really sucks and I'm so sorry. Let's just sit here together. And because I've been in many, many hospital rooms, and earlier in my career, and maybe you've experienced this too, I would walk into hospital rooms thinking I had some sort of solution, that I was going to be able to say the right joke or do this or that to be able to and often I found that was the worst thing I could do. And I would leave discouraged, thinking like, I didn't really minister to these people that well. But what I often found is when I walked into the room and just sat there and sometimes didn't even say anything, it usually turned out the best, because I think people just want your presence there, that your presence in the midst of their pain shows you that they care. And intuitively, and if they're a believer in Jesus, they know that all that God said is true and that he will use this somehow. But you have to be careful that you don't fast forward past the pain for them, that actually I think God does some of his best work in the midst of pain. And so I would just say that sometimes you have to sit in it and allow the Holy Spirit to do work.
That's so good. Yeah, I've learned from just watching, and like the first time you walk into one of those rooms, you don't know what you're stepping into, right? And I've definitely had my fair share of probably over talking. I've had my fair share of trying to fix everything, and then there's been times where I've just sat in a room with Pastor Jim Todd, and I've just watched him cry with the family, and that's what they needed. Yep. And I was like rifling through verses in my head, right?
Yeah.
And I just watched them cry. I said, "Oh, it's time to shut up and just sit with them and be with them." And that's so good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, as we keep walking through chapter 10, we have established that Daniel's in a really hard spot, and all of a sudden he sees this incredible figure, and like this insane act of power shows up out of nowhere. I'm just going to read it.
Yeah.
It's verse 10 through 13. Daniel says, "A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, 'Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you and stand up, for I have now been sent to you.' And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, 'Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come.'" And this is nuts, like this. So we understand, and you unpacked it for us. Like this isn't like a physical king, right? This is spiritual battle made for TV movie stuff. An angel of the Lord was coming to bring a message to Daniel, but he was held up by some evil being. And he resides over Persia. Like what are we seeing here in our understanding of words?
Well, if we remember back to when we had the first of the beasts that we looked at where I scared all the kids in that service, and so that was Daniel chapter 7, I believe. And we remind ourselves that even though those beasts assign themselves to Babylon and to Persia and to Greece and to, like, you can keep going to Rome, we realize that there's an overarching idea that these are all evil. And so they're associating those with evil. So you just have to be mindful. Now, obviously, when it says Persia, I mean, it's very ironic because Cyrus was the king of Persia in the midst of it, and certainly there was evil as a part of that. But interestingly enough, God was allowing the people to leave under the curse of Persia. So perhaps there's a little of this, like, even though Persia was evil, the fact that good overcame is a highlight of them leaving, and it could have been that. But overarching, it's just like, hey, we're in the midst of an evil thing, and you've got something beautiful and holy that you can't even describe up against this evil that is there, and he ran into it. He ran into it. So,
and then the archangel Michael shows up, and who is Michael? Like, what's his role?
Well, he's like the head of the angel army. Like, that guy is like, I'd like to meet that dude. Like, that's going to be
no kidding.
Pretty, yeah. So you see him come throughout Scripture in different times, but he's always coming with the sword, baby. Like, he's coming with the sauce. Like, he's coming. So. So the fact that Michael came in, it's almost like he was the enforcer, coming in to back up.
Yeah, man.
And the way the text reads, it's almost like it seemed like this certain angel was kind of being pinned down a little bit by the evil, and it says that he came in and he's like, yeah, we're going, So I don't know, just imagery is fantastic. So,
and like, you have to imagine, like, this is real battles. Like, this is like, like that's the only way it's ever been described in the Bible. It's like, and Michael is just this bringer of justice, you know?
He's the man.
But
yeah, and that's, I think, also important, is like, we in our minds think of battles in a certain way. We have a Western way of thinking of it, maybe you're going back Civil War times because you think it's old and it's people with bayonets and stuff, or maybe you're thinking of lasers and ships like Star Wars or something, but we probably can't even comprehend the type of warfare that we're dealing. But what we do know, it's intense.
Yeah.
It's intense.
It's so intense that, one, it's reserved for these heavenly realm beings, and two, that even the mere presence of them is enough to make us fall to our knees. Shoot, like, the beginning of this is like the people who didn't even see this figure, that they didn't even see it, they were so scared they fled.
Yeah.
And they're battling? Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
You think there's going to be a rewind button in heaven where we can, like, watch all this stuff, like with actual?
I've talked to some people. It's there. So.
Good. All right, perfect. Well, as we learn all this, and the angels are talking and winning battles, Daniel 10:15-17 says, "While he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face towards the ground and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe." And as you pointed all this out to us, all they could muster out in this moment is worship. It just kind of poured out. But he didn't, like, pull out a guitar and start singing, right?
Yeah.
This is worship, but it's not musical. Can you break it down? Like, what does that look like?
Well, we put worship in a box, and it's usually 3 to 5 songs, 3.5 minutes. It's got a prayer at the end. It's got maybe something in it, and that's what we think of worship. Or if we go a little bit even longer, like we go to a worship concert, and it always swirls around singing, which is fine. I mean, we read in Revelation where there's going to be singing of "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, who was and is to come." I mean, we see that taking place. But worship is that is a I would think that sort of worship, singing, is like almost like a side effect of the deeper worship. Like it's what's naturally going to outpour over the heart of worship, which is to adore the Lord for who He is and what He has done, for His presence, for the fact that He is omnipresent, He is sovereign, He is loving, He is all that is good. And as magnificent as even this image that we have of this angel is, God's presence is a billion times better than that, you know. And if in the sight of just a single angel, Daniel falls to his feet, falls to the ground, and it says that he fell asleep. I think he just was knocked out, just like, I'm out, man, I can't handle it. Can you even imagine? And we can't, like, what it would be like when we're in the face of the Almighty God. And so it is, worship is it's an honoring for who God truly is in our lives, in that we would ultimately bow ourselves down to Him as the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, the creator of all things. And as we see time and time throughout Scripture, that will be our natural bent as a Christian and as a follower of Jesus, that every every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus is the Lord, and we will do that. We will do that. And so I think what we could see is that, yes, music is a great thing, right? Music is a great thing, but at the same time, we can also encourage ourselves to worship. Now, you might ask, like, how do you do that? Like, what does it look like to worship? I mean, what's your thought? What do you think?
I mean, it's you start with music, and like you take the journey of like unfolding your arms in worship, and like maybe like raising a little hand, and like you start to like dive into this musical worship. But then I remember being young and angsty and being like, oh, music worship, that's the worst. I'm not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I got clocked real quick by my small group leaders of saying like, okay, first of all, we'll deal with the music, your little like mad teenager music thing later.
Yeah.
But that's not what worship is exclusively, right? And they're like, you worship in the way you treat people. You worship in your work ethic. You worship in your devotion to the Lord and like your time with Him. You worship like in all these different ways. And I think like it's an intentional shift in how you do things, right? Like I think we've talked a lot about like Christians in the workplace. Like we should be the hardest workers. We should be the most generous. And it's not because we're better. We shouldn't be because like we're more equipped. We should do it because we are worshiping with our 9 to 5. We are pointing people towards the Lord by how we talk to people, right? And so when we talk with like high schoolers, or when I talk to young adults, or when we talk when we preach, we're trying to like get it focused. Like worshiping God is not reserved for pick your favorite service time, right? That's not where we exclusively worship God. That's where we come together and corporately worship.
Sure.
But if you're not intentionally doing that in the rest of your life, well then, man, you're only doing one out of the, I don't know how many hours are in a week, but if only one of those hours was reserved for worship, you've got it backwards. You got your priorities mixed up.
Well, and if the church is to be honest, to put their hand in the air, a lot of times we don't do a good job of connecting the dots on that. I mean, we'll even call it, man, that wasn't that great worship, and then we'll go into the message, and we almost like disconnect them from this. And I'll put my hand in there. I've done that before. Yeah. But when we think of our lives as constant worship, like there's nothing that you can't. You're either going to worship God truly, or you're going to worship something else. Like there is no in between. Like there's no middle ground. So when we worship our jobs and think that money is that's what we're worshiping, or if we're going to worship Christ and who He is and what He's done for us, and be humble and generous, then it's another way of worshiping. And so I think one person has called it worthship. So what is worth in your life? Worship is one way, but when you give your life over to the Lord and say, this is what my life is worth. My life is worth following you and giving my life to you. And so I just have found that people that actually worship from the second their eyes open to the second they close their eyes are just genuinely more joyful people. Yeah. And they have a better perspective on life. And oftentimes people will come up and say, hey, what's different? And they get a chance to share about Jesus. And so worship should never cease. We should always be worshiping.
I tell people all the time when they talk about, like their workplace and the environment that they're in and the people that they're surrounded by, I tell them all the time, it's like, your job in the middle of pick your workforce is so much harder than like we give credit for. Because, people very kindly will come and be like, oh, thank you for all the work you do in ministry, and thank you for everything. And it's much appreciated. And it's hard a lot of times, right?
Sure, yeah.
But I also don't want people to discredit like how much you are on the front lines in that classroom where you're not allowed to talk about the Bible and you cannot push your religion, and yet you still got to figure out a way to worship the Lord and point all things towards Him. And like, man, those are the frontline warriors. Like that's, and if you can pull off worshiping in the middle of a culture of a boss who like despises religion and like red tape surrounding you everywhere, if you can figure out how to worship God, man, like that is incredible for the kingdom. I love it.
Well, if we bring ourselves all the way back to where we began, and we said that so sometimes God is going to keep us in uncomfortable situations for His glory and our growth. I think that there is, if we go to that rewind button in heaven that we're anxious to see, I think there's also going to be this other screen that can say, like, what if we had followed this or done this, like the outpouring of what that could have been. And and since there won't be, guilt and shame and all that stuff in heaven, I think you'll be able to see it maybe potentially for what it is. Now, this is just me speculating. If it's not there, don't get mad at me. But What I just imagine is that I think sometimes people tap out too quick. And they tap out for all kinds of different reasons. And let's just be honest. I mean, there are people that are leaving the state of California, maybe even leaving our church to go to different states because they want to go where the politics is more what they agree with, or their type of, like, there's this sense of like, I want to move myself towards comfort and stability and like-mindedness. And, I think of Daniel in the midst of, he'd probably saying like, I would love to go to Jerusalem too. I'd love to go home. I'd love to be, but God is saying, I'm not going to take you out of that. And have anybody had all the reasons? I've been here 70 years. I was put in a lion's den. I saw my boys like in a fiery furnace. I've done my time here, God. And yet he wasn't done with them. And I just think there's too many of us that tap out too quick when the mission field is still very, very full and the workers are very few. To have the very few workers that we have decide to huddle up and create their own harvest concerns me. I'll just be honest with you, And I think that that's a reality, not just a California thing, but it's kind of everywhere, Heaven's going to be great. It's coming. But we got work to do while we're here. And so sometimes God might call you to stay in a situation that might not feel good now, but it's going to reap a harvest for when you get to heaven later. And thousands of people come up to you and say, hey, thanks for not moving to Nashville, because your impact in my life meant a whole lot. And had you moved, I wouldn't have been able to know who Christ is. I believe that's going to happen. And so I just think that there is a reality that sometimes we get into hard situations and we tap out too soon. But if we would press past the hard and to see what God is trying to show in us, we're going to grow and God's going to do great things. And so I just would say, remember that the war is already won. Jesus reigns. So stick into the battles in the middle of it and let's go win some more people for Jesus together.
That's so good. I knew a pastor who was trying to figure out where to go for his next church. And he had his mentor ask him, he said, if you believed hell was real, where would you go? Like, where would you go do ministry if you believed hell was real? Which he obviously does. And the question was basically like, go to where the most people are going to end up separated from the Father. Like, that's where you need to go.
Right.
And I think that doesn't just apply to people in church. It applies to everyone. Mm-hmm. So I love it. The encouragement that you've given us, and it's a battle cry, right? Like,
let's go.
That's what it is. I mean, shoot, that's kind of what we're being teed up for with Daniel. Like, it is, we're about to, in the next coming chapters, we're going to witness this battle. We're going to see these visions and these promises, and history's going to prove some, and some's for the future. But man, it all comes back to God's in control.
All the time.
All the time.
So, and for those that got baptized, we are so excited for you. Those that maybe have not yet crossed that line of faith, hey, not too late, by the way. We would love to do that for you. And if you're listening to this, you're like, I'd love to get dunked. Hey, would you just make a note in there, contact us. We'll figure it out. We'll come to you. We'll do what it takes to be able to help you take that next step. And if you got baptized, let me just encourage you that is not your last step. That's your first step. So make sure that you are taking next steps with us. We have our baptism celebration class. We have our DFL pathway. We've got great things that are in store for you to be able to, but you got to take advantage of it. So the war is won in the water, yes, but the battles are still going to come, and we want you to be prepared for that. So be prepared for that, and help us. Let us help you. Let us help you take your next step.
Come on, man. We love it. Hey, thank you so much for spending some time talking more about Daniel 10 and all these cool things. And next week, we're continuing on we're getting to like the meat of this vision, right?
2 more chapters to go. Can you believe it? It's going to be awesome. But hey, thanks for hosting too. And Heather, thanks for all that she does. I know she's listening somewhere, but it's fun to get to do this, and hopefully people are enjoying it. Hey, give us some notes or anything. If there's anything we can do or answer any questions for you, Preston's going to put some good stuff in there. But thanks for letting me be here today. Appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
I had more fun. Hey, thank you guys for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
Tag, you're it.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next weekend at Crossroads on campus or online for one of our 4 weekend services. To view our service times, make sure you check out our website at crossroadsgrace.org. Tag, you're it.